Hello and welcome to WMT Reviews 12 Nights of Halloween. I am Wiseman Tanofsky. Now, like Stephen King, it just wouldn't be proper to complete a series praising the mad and the macabre minds of the horror movie franchise without giving props to one of its most imaginative and brutal minds. And I mentioned him briefly in my Candyman review. That being Clive Barker. Author, painter, screenwriter, producer, director, playwright, and visual artist, Barker has done it all. And whether he likes it or not, where he really shines is horror. There's something truly dark and fascinating about his imagination, a sinister place that he goes to for inspiration that has created some of the most disturbing imagery in the horror genre. Whether it be through his various paintings or his novels, he never fails to take his audience along for the ride into the depths of his obscure mind and leave them mind blown when they wake up facing themselves at the end of it. That darkness that lurks within everyone at their hidden and maddened core. Unlike King, however, Barker's novels and ideas seem to translate very well to film in almost every attempt, normally due to the fact that their creator himself is often nearby, aiding in some way or another to see that his vision is properly realised. An instance of this occurred in the case of 1987's Hellraiser, based upon Barker's novel The Hellbound Heart, and which he personally wrote and directed. Hellraiser drew up contrasts and blurred lines between love and lust, pain and pleasure, and did it all while keeping its unique brand of monster, the Cenobites, very much in the shadows for the majority of the film. The themes of mystery and discovery were played upon in many different ways, and it even succeeds in bringing to light each character's hamartia, or fatal flaw, through various means of character development, and portrays the consequences with some truly standout practical effects and masses of gore. So let's take another look at this fast train to hell and back. This is the WMT review of Clive Barker's Hellraiser. So, what's the story? Larry Cotton, played by Andrew Robinson, decides to move back into his old childhood home in order to rebuild a strained relationship with his wife Julia, played by Clare Higgins, while his daughter Kirsty, played by Ashley Laurence, elects to live instead in her own home away from her stepmother. While moving in, Larry injures himself and his blood secretly resurrects the tortured form of his brother Frank, who was killed by torture demons called Cenobites when he solved an ancient puzzle box called the Lament Configuration. Having escaped the Cenobites' clutches, Frank goads Julia, with whom he'd had an affair in life, to lure unsuspecting men home to be killed and use their blood to fully reconstitute himself. But when Kirsty finds him and solves the Lament Configuration herself, she barters with the leader of the Cenobites, Pinhead, played by Doug Bradley, to return Frank to hell in exchange for her own life. Frank, meanwhile, murders his brother and completes his resurrection, before killing Julia and being tricked by Kirsty into revealing his true identity, causing the Cenobites to return and drag him back to hell. In many ways, Hellraiser is more than just another horror film. It plays on the themes of love and lust through the development of each character, and it builds up their individual flaws and the consequences for each with some truly great scenes, also making use of the horror tradition that sex means death. Larry is unable to satisfy Julia in bed, which leads to his demise at the hands of his more sexually capable brother. Julia is a serial adulteress and betrays her husband to Frank, leading to her demise at the hands of Frank's own betrayal of her. Even Kirsty isn't perfect, engaging readily in premarital sex with her own partner, and as a result of that she very nearly meets her own end, but is able to escape from it. In truth, Frank is the true villain of the film, sleeping with the wife of his own brother, sexually assaulting his niece Kirsty while she was very young. He sees himself as more than just a man when it comes to sex, perceiving himself to be some sort of sex god, dabbling around in sadistic torture games, sadomasochism, and adultery, but ultimately meets his own end when he comes face to face with the Cenobites, who are in many ways what he believes himself to be, but in their existence alone prove him to be nothing more than just an insect by comparison, shown clearly by the fear he blatantly regards them with. He thought he was the big strong man, but when those demons showed up, it opened his mind to pains and sensations he'd never imagined and could never handle. So let's have a look at Doug Bradley as the lead Cenobite, or Pinhead as he would later become known. Bradley's presence is purely scene-stealing. As soon as that lighting changes and you hear that ominous distant bell and his leather-clad form enters frame, you can't bring yourself to take your eyes off him. He delivers his lines with a threatening but almost vacant tone, as though every conversation he has is merely a distraction that he's had to get through time and time again for thousands of years. And Bradley's voice is perfect for this dominant and demonic character, both subtle and threatening. It's a character perfectly complemented by his weapon of choice, those cold, sadomasochistic hooked chains, deeply evocative of the bizarre eroticism of his character. There are people who dabble in this kind of play and call themselves masters, but the real masters are standing right there. I don't normally find many horror icons all that unnerving, but when Bradley says the line, "We'll tear your soul apart," a chill runs right up my spine. Everything from the camera angle to the tone of his delivery makes a line which could have sounded so corny sound bloody threatening. Two of Pinhead's lieutenants are silent roles, both the Butterball Cenobite and the Chatterer Cenobite, and so rely wholly on their makeup and physical performances, and my God, do they ever succeed. The eerie sound of the Chatterer's teeth knocking together is a sound you'll struggle to forget, and a lot like the Xenomorph from the Alien series, he's made even creepier by the lack of visible eyes. No eyes, just teeth. That's a seriously creepy monster. The Butterball is a fantastic visualization of the glutton for punishment. He looks like Jabba the Hutt's S&M obsessed brother, and the way he creepily licks his lips is so unnerving. The final Cenobite is the female Cenobite played by Grace Kirby, and she gives such a chilling performance as to almost rival Bradley's. The makeup is fantastic, her voice is rasping and breathless, and all of them together form the dream team of your worst nightmares. So what about the rest of the cast? Ashley Laurence portrays her character fantastically well and does very well not to slip into the trap of just being Nancy from Nightmare on Elm Street. She clearly loves her father, clearly detests her stepmother, and when she faces down the Cenobites and the resurrected Frank, she conveys a perfect amount of fear and disdain. I also like Andrew Robinson as the loving but unsatisfying husband. He portrays a character that's found a comfortable place in life and now just wants to be a family man. He's married, he's had a child, he's raised her to adulthood, and now he's ready to put up his feet and work till retirement. This unfortunately conflicts with what his more sexually adventurous wife Julia has in mind. And here is another character that I love to hate. This woman is fantastically cruel and delivers her character with such a snide sense of cynicism, all the while lusting after Frank, who gives a chilling performance as the creepy adulterer uncle. Whether it be in the form of a skinless corpse or not, this guy is seriously creepy. I think what makes Hellraiser fantastic is the pure reliance on practical effects. Clive Barker has always said he's passionate about the power of practical makeup over CGI, and it carries over well in this film. The sequence in which Frank's corpse rises from the attic floor was done completely with makeup and fantastic editing, and it created something far scarier and gut-wrenching than any computer could create. The Cenobites in all their hellish glory were achieved through the power of costume and makeup alone, giving actors something nightmarish in front of them to react and respond to, which really gives their performances a big boost. It proves once again what I've said time and time again in these horror reviews, that practical effects can trump anything a computer can knock up any day. And if executed properly, they can date a lot slower than computer effects too. The makeup in Hellraiser in many areas still stands up by modern standards, whereas various CG scenes from other films do not. Overall, Hellraiser is a very strong film. It tells a good story with some relatable, likeable, and hateable characters. It introduces viewers to the dark corners of their mind and yearns to be explored by all who stumble upon it, playing upon curiosities and dishing out consequences for those who stray too far. In terms of its story structure, Hellraiser makes very good use of very old Greek traditions of storytelling and utilizes them to great effect, rooting out each character's fatal flaw and dealing them a demise deserving of that flaw. Whether it be in the lines of hapless men Julia lures back to the house to kill, or Julia herself, everyone gets what they deserve, be it a bloody death by hooked chains or a narrow escape. For me, Hellraiser remains to be one of the greats in horror. It never fails to make my skin crawl, in spite of the grin I always have on my face while watching it. And it earns itself a well-deserved 7.5 on the Orsometer. A strong story told very well, with the perfect application of practical effects to play on the dark corners of every viewer's imagination. So that's a 7.5 on the Orsometer for Clive Barker's Hellraiser. I've been Wiseman Tanofsky. This has been WMT Reviews 12 Nights of Halloween. Thank you very much for listening.